Hare Krishna. Welcome to this special program on the systematic study of the topmost among all the Vedic literatures, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Before we start today's session, I shall chant a few prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishthiki Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I would like to welcome everyone again on this very special program to systematically study the best among all the Vedic scriptures, the topmost, the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have already completed the study of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and now we are in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein the greatest transcendentalist Srila Shukadeva Goswami, the son of the great sage Veda Vyasa, has begun to give his most important instructions in reply to the questions asked by Maharaj Parikshit. He has already explained in chapter 1 of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that the most important duty for all people for all times is to engage in the pure devotional service of the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, especially by the process of constant hearing, chanting and remembering about the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Then he has also explained the first step. This is actually the path of Shuddha Bhakti or pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the ultimate, the final, the topmost step in God realization, whereas the first step in God realization is the path of Ashtanga Yoga, wherein a neophyte yogi begins to understand the conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth in his material feature as the gigantic Virat Rupa or the Vishwarupa. So how to gradually purify one's material consciousness by concentrating, by meditating on the Virat Rupa by the process of Dharana, which is the fifth stage in the Ashtanga Yoga, in the eightfold system of Dhyana Yoga, has been very beautifully explained in chapter 1 of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, in the second chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami goes further to a higher level of spiritual practice within the Ashtanga Yoga system. In the Ashtanga Yoga system, the basic practice, there is a basic practice for the neophyte preliminary yogi, and then there is the advanced practice for a advanced yogi. So a neophyte yogi has the basic dharana or meditation on the Virat Rupa of the Supreme Lord, and an advanced transcendentalist is recommended and suggested, and also the path of is delineated of how to meditate, how to further advance to the sixth level of dhyana. This is actually the 7th level of dhyana, and dhyana is on the Paramatma, on the super soul in the heart. So Shukadeva Goswami begins the 2nd chapter of the 2nd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam by explaining how one can become purified of all material consciousness by advancing on the path of meditation on the Virat Rupa. And then he further goes to the explanation of meditation on the Paramatma. So Shri Shuka Uvacha, in 2.2.1, Shukadeva Goswami says, Evam pura dharanayatmayonir nashtam smritir pratyavaruddhya tushtat tatha sasarjedam amogha drishtir yathapyayat prag vyavasaya buddhihi. When Atma Yoni, or Lord Brahma, who is the first living entity in this universe, nashtam smritim, when he had completely when he was completely bereft of his wisdom and intelligence and memory with respect to his duty and how he should create, at that time he engaged evam pura, he engaged in this dharana, this process of meditation on the Virat Rupa of the Supreme Lord, and in this way, tatha sasarjedam idam amogha drishtihi, Lord Brahma was restored to his complete knowledge and wisdom. He regained his lost consciousness by meditation on the Supreme Lord, and in this way he was able to rebuild the entire creation as it was before. So this is a cycle of creation and destruction. So again in the next cycle, when Brahma had lost his knowledge and memory, he could revive it by the process of dharana or meditation on the Virat Rupa, on the universal form of the Supreme Lord. So again here Shukadeva Goswami greatly stresses on the point that a transcendentalist, a spiritualist, must take proper care and precaution not to again become attached to any material affairs or to any material connections. So especially one may get diverted in the name of spirituality. This is also called as matha adi vyaparan, that one can again go into again in the name of spirituality, one should not go into accumulation of more material possessions, especially in the path of Ashtanga Yoga. There is a certain concession given in the path of Bhakti Yoga, which is known as Yukta Vairagya, wherein one can utilize and dovetail all the material possessions in the service of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna without any personal benefit, and that is allowed. But in any other path of yoga, one should be very careful and alert not to be allured, especially towards possession of material wealth and try to increase one's material possessions. So one should be, Shukadeva Goswami recommends that especially an Ashtanga yogi must remain completely satisfied with the bare minimum material necessities of life and should avoid any association with the materialistic persons. Atah kavir nama suyavadarthaha syada pramatto vyavasaya buddhihi siddhen yatharthe nayate tatra parishramam tatra samikshamanaha. The enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life, and he should apramattaha, without being bewildered with his intelligence, he should understand that all endeavor for increasing material possessions is nothing but parishramam, or hard labor without any tangible spiritual benefit. So there are some very beautiful verses wherein Shukadeva Goswami inspires that kind of a dependence on the Supreme, and makes a spiritualist not to depend on any material arrangements or adjustments. He says in 2.2.4 and 5, Satyam kshitau kim kashipo prayaser bahau swasiddhe hyupabarhane kim satyanjalau kim purudhanna patrya digval kaladau sati kim dukulaihi chirani kim pathina santi dishanti bhiksham naivangripa parabhrita saritopyashishyan ruddha guha kimajito vatinopyasannan kasmad bhajanti kavayo dhanadurmadandhan. So he very beautifully explains that when there is ample earthly flats to lie on, what is the necessity to accumulate some beds and cots and make an arrangement for sleeping? One has to sleep, one can just lie down anywhere on any earthly flat. When one can use one's arms for sleeping, where is the necessity to have a pillow? When one can use the palms of his hands, where is the necessity of varieties of utensils? When there is ample covering of the bark and skin of trees, what is the necessity of clothing? One can use all these natural things for one's bare minimum necessities. Chirani kim pathina agdhegno torn clothes. Shukadeva Goswami continues to explain this dependence on Mother Nature and the Supreme Lord, and not on any material arrangements, by saying that agdhegno torn clothes on the common road. Do the trees which exist for maintaining others have stopped providing their produce in the form of fruits and grains and vegetables? Have the rivers dried up? We need to drink water, we need to eat food. So they are supplied in ample quantity by Mother Nature, and one should just depend on these natural gifts. For residence, he says, Ruddha guhaha, are the guha, the caves of the mountains, now closed? Or most important, Shukadeva Goswami says that Ajita is another name of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Avati na upasannan. Upasannan, a person who surrenders to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Na avati, has he stopped? Has the Supreme Lord, unto whom everyone, including the greatest of Devatas, surrender, has he stopped giving protection to his surrendered devotees? Then if that is not the case, and is never going to be the case, the Supreme Lord is always going to give the highest protection to all his surrendered devotees. So then kasmad bhajanti kavayo dhanadurmadhandhan. Why should a spiritualist go to flatter those who are intoxicated by wealth and go begging to them? So this is a higher stage in sannyasa for a yogi. In the initial stage of renunciation in the path of sannyasa, there is the duty of a sannyasi wherein he goes from home to home for bhiksha or for begging. But on the highest stage, on a much higher stage, a sannyasi, a renunciant, should even completely stop depending on begging from the materialistic householders and completely depend on Mother Nature and the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Father, for all the bare minimum necessities of life, and utilize his complete energy and time and dedication to the spiritual advancement of life. Now, here again, for an Ashtanga yogi who is so advanced, who is completely free from all dependence on any material arrangements, and has reached such an advanced stage, Again, Shukadeva Goswami now is going to explain and delineate the path of meditation, of dhyana on the Paramatma, on the Super Soul within the heart. Kechit swadehantar hridayavakashe pradeshamatram purusham vasantam chaturbhujam kanjarathanga shankha gadadharam dharanaya smaranti. This advanced stage of dharana or meditation on the Supreme Lord is specifically on the divine form of Paramatma, who is Swadeha Antar Hridayavakashe, who is located in the core of one's heart. So this is a very, very important instruction given here. Again, there are many classes of spiritualists or transcendentalists who claim to be yogis, who are on the path of yoga, but they follow the path of monism, of impersonalism, and claim that the absolute truth is formless, is nirguna, nirakara, avyakta, and they say that one's object of meditation, the dharana ashaya, should be something completely void or impersonal, avyakta, nirakara. But the Srimad Bhagavatam and all the authentic, genuine description of the path of yoga very, very clearly, emphatically establish that the object of dharana, the object of dhyana, of samadhi is always the divine form of the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Absolute Truth is never avyakta, nirakara or nirguna. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Absolute Truth is not impersonal, it is not formless, it is the divine form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is the source of even the impersonal and formless energy of the Supreme Lord, which is known as Brahman or Brahma Jyoti. So this is explained in 2.2.6 that evam svachitte svata eva siddha atma priyogtho bhagavan anantaha tam nirvrito niyatartho bhajeta samsara hetu paramascha yatra. In this way, when one is fixed in complete vairagya, renunciation, what should one do? One should begin bhajeta, one should render bhakti or devotional service unto Bhagavan Anantaha, unto the Supreme Lord Krishna Anantaha, who is Swachitte Swata Eva Siddha, who by his expansion, please remember, the Paramatma is the expansion or the reflection of the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, not the complete aspect of Bhagavan. Paramatma is the reflection or the expansion or the localized aspect of the Supreme Lord in the heart of every living entity. So this has very explicitly been explained in the 9th chapter of the 1st canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam by the great authority Bhishma Deva. So now here, after explaining the meditation on the Virat Rupa, which is external, now Shukadeva Goswami explains that an advanced Ashtanga Yogi must learn to meditate internally in the core of one's heart, even beyond the, even subtler than the Jivatma, even than the Atma or soul, even more subtler, even more spiritually finer is the Paramatma, the Super Soul, the Lord within the heart, who is actually the reflection or the expansion of the Supreme Lord. So he is situated within the heart, and his form is now described, which is the supreme object of meditation for an Ashtanga yogi. It is also explained later in the 11th canto and the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that Dhyanavasthita tadghatena manasa pashyantiyam yoginaha. The yogis, when they are perfected in dhyana and so the form of the super soul in the heart is never to be considered as something imaginary or a concocted or any kind of a material form. It is completely spiritual, and it is the factual form of the super soul, the Paramatma, as seated in the heart. So here it is explained, especially from verses 8 up to 12, the factual description of the divine form of the super soul as he is situated in the heart of every living being. So it is explained that Kechit svadehantar hridayavakashe pradeshamatram purusham vasantam chaturbhujam kancharathanga shankha gadadharam dharanaya smaranti. In dharana, or in complete deep contemplation and meditation, the yogi, the advanced yogi who is completely situated in renunciation, he conceives the super soul in the heart having 4 arms, the Chaturbhuja Vishnu Murti, having the 4 symbols of Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. So in this way, the super soul is further explained. Prasannavaktram nalidayate kshanam kadamba kinchal kapishangavasasam lasan maharatna hiranmayangadam sfuran maharatna kirita kundalam unnidrahit kabankaja kagnikalaye yogeshwara sthapita pada pallavam shri lakshanam kaustubharatna kantharam amlana lakshmya malaya chitam. The super soul in the heart, his most enchanting and beautiful smile is the supreme object of meditation. His beautiful eyes are spread like the petals of a lotus flower. His dazzling garments are yellowish like the saffron of a kadamba flower. He is bedecked with various jewels and with fresh flower garlands. But please do remember, always keep in mind that everything about the form and the description of the Supreme Lord is completely free from all conceptions of material nature. All these various features and details of the super soul are Trigunatita, beyond the 3 modes of material nature. His lotus feet are placed over the walls of the lotus-like hearts of the great yogis. On his chest is the Kaustubha jewel and the mark of the calf, which is also known as the Shrivat Sanka. So in this way, the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami explains the exact form, the factual form of the super soul in the core of one's heart, and how by meditation one gradually comes face to face. The Jivatma, who is also in the core of the heart, comes in direct realization of the super soul. The ultimate perfection in the practice of Ashtanga Yoga by a person, by a yogi completely established in full renunciation is achieved as explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Dhyanavasthita tadghatena manasa pashyantiyam yoginaha. Finally, in the stage of Samadhi, the Jivatma, becoming completely free from all material bondage and contamination, comes face to face with the super soul. So this situation is explained to be in the Srimad Bhagavatam as Labdhopashanti. So this perfection is very beautifully explained in 2.2.16 that Manasva Buddhya Niyamya Kshetrajna Etam Ninayettamatmani Atmanamatmanyavarudhya Dhiro Labdho Pashante Virameta Krityat. The yogi completely merging his mind with his unalloyed intelligence into the self, into the Atma, Atmani Evatmana, and then finally comes to the stage of realizing the Paramatma, the Super Soul in the heart. And this is the stage of Labdhopashanti, when the Jivatma, is completely and fully satisfied in the self with the direct contact of the Super Soul of the Paramatma. And this stage is further explained. This is the actual stage of moksha or liberation from all material bondage. This is very beautifully expressed in 2.2.17 as Nayatra Kalo Nimisham Paraprabhu Kuto nu Deva Jagatamya Ishire Nayatra Sattvam Narajastamascha Navai Vikaro Namahan Pradhanam. At that stage, there is not even the influence of the most powerful factor of bondage in material existence, which is Kala, Nayatra Kalo. At the stage of Labdhopashanti or Moksha, one becomes free from even the influence, from the strong grip of Kala, which even controls Animisham Paraprabhu, which controls even the most powerful devatas, even up to Lord Brahma in Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. All the devatas are within the grip of Kala or eternal time. But at the stage of the soul coming in direct contact with the Paramatma in the heart, one becomes free from the influence, from the bondage of Kala. And at that stage, Kutonu Deva, what to speak of the Devatas? They are completely out of the picture. There is no existence or influence of the Devatas. The Devatas are just administrative heads in the material world, whereas in the spiritual realm of complete emancipation, complete liberation from material elements and factors, Kala, Devatas, none of them have a place. Kutonu Deva Jagatamya Ishire Nayatra Sattvam Narajastamascha Navai Vikaro Mahan Pradhanam. Neither is there the influence of the three gunas, Nayatra Sattvam, neither Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna or Tamo Guna. So in this way, one becomes completely free from all the fundamental causes of material bondage, Kala, Karma, Devatas, the three gunas, even the Mahat Tattva and the Pradhana. So it is just like, as I had mentioned in the previous example, that our existence in the material world is compared to a vriksha or a tree, and on the specific branch, which is the core of the heart, is the location of the Jivatma and the Paramatma. So at the time of liberation, the entire tree with all its components and constituents, right from the root to the branches, to all the twigs and leaves, and everything is eliminated, and what remains is the eternal true principles, the real truths of the Jivatma and the Paramatma. Only those two birds remain, and everything else vanishes, is completely gone. So that is the stage of liberation, when the soul comes in contact with the Super Soul, with the Paramatma. At that time, this is the most opportune time for the yogi to give up his material body by the process of raising, by lifting the pranavayu, the life air, through the 6 chakras. First, by completely blocking the place of evacuation by the heels of one's feet. So this process of the technical process of giving up the body by raising the life air through the sthaneshu shatsu unnamayed jitakramaha parampadam. So this particular stage is where there is no influence of any of these material factors of bondage. The ultimate aim of the Ashtanga yogis, of the highest stage of Ashtanga yoga, is further explained in 2.2.18 as Parampadam Tat Parampadam Vaishnavamamananti yad yenneti neti tyatadutsrisikshavaha visrijyadauratmyamananya sahruda hridopaguhyarhya padam pade pade. That stage which is finally attained by the conclusion of the process of neti. There is a class of philosophers in Ashtanga Yoga who are known as the monists, the Brahmavadis or the Advaitavadis, who take the negative approach to understand the supreme absolute truth, the Parama Satya, and this process is known as neti. That the supreme absolute truth, the Parama Satya, is not this, is not that, is not this or not that. So they begin to eliminate, to reject all the various things in their observation, both on the physical and the metaphysical level. So in this way, as they progress, actually the Brahmavadis or the Advaitavadis, although claim that the supreme absolute truth is not this or not that or not this or not that, but what exactly is it? They are unable to understand, conceive or realize. But final conclusion of after eliminating everything, that is after the final conclusion of neti, when you eliminate everything, finally what remains is the Parama Satya or the Paramapada, the supreme absolute truth, and that is revealed here in 2.2.18 as Parampadam Vaishnavamamananti tad. That is the Vaishnava Paramapada or Vaikuntha Loka, or later in the next verse it is explained to be the final destination. The Gati of the Ashtanga Yogi is very clearly explained here to be Akuntha Drishti, or Akuntha is another nomenclature or denomination of Vaikuntha Loka. So when the yogi is ready to leave his body, being completely fixed on Paramapadam Vaishnavam Amananti, on the Vaikuntha Loka, which is the final revelation after the complete elimination of all material elements of neti, and finally we reach the positive revelation of the Parama Satya to be the Vaikuntha Loka, the Paramapada Vaishnava. So in this way, one gradually raises the life air from the Swadhisthana Chakra. There are Shatsu Sthana, the Shat Chakras in the body, which are known as the Swadhisthana Chakra, which is where the powerhouse of the life air is situated, and then one has to raise it to the Manipuraka Chakra, which is just below the abdomen in the navel region. The life air has to be further raised in the heart, which is known as the Anahata Chakra, and then to the root of the palate, which is known as the Vishuddhi Chakra. And in this way, Tasmad Bhruvorantaramunnayeta Niruddha Saptayatanona Sthitva Muhurtardhamakuntha Drishtir Nirbhidya Murdhan Visrijet Param Gataha. Thereafter, the yogi should push the life air between the eyebrows and then blocking all the outlets of all the other outlets of pranavayu. He should now aim to go back to the spiritual world, the parampadam of Akuntha or Vaikuntha Loka, and in this way he should leave from the cerebral passage, and that way the Ashtanga Yogi can reach the eternal kingdom of God, or Akuntha Loka or Vaikuntha Loka. This applies to a yogi who is completely free from all material desires. But in case even there is a tinge or a trace of material desire still remaining in the heart of the yogi, then one is ineligible and incapable. One cannot go back to the spiritual world. And in that case, there is the process of gradual elevation. Yadi prayasya nripaparameshtyam vaihayasanam utayad viharam ashtadhipatyam gunasannavaye sahaiva gacchen manasendriyescha. So, in case the yogi is still having any trace of material desire, then he will not be able to pierce the entire material universe and go to the spiritual world, but instead would first go to the planet of the Vaihayasa in the outer space, and then gradually to the next level, which is known as the Vaishvanara Loka. Vaishvanara is the place where the soul is completely purified by Agni or fire. Vaishvanara also refers to fire. So Vaishvanaram yati vihayasa gataha sushumnaya brahmapathena shotisha vidhuta kalkotha harerudas prayati chakram nripashaishumaram. The yogi then proceeds to Vaishvanara, becomes completely purified of all previous material sins that he had committed in the sojourn of his innumerable births in the material world, and then gets elevated to the Shishumara Chakra, and then from Shishumara Chakra he further goes to the Mahar Loka, and at the time of partial devastation, then he proceeds from Mahaloka to Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. And after reaching Brahmaloka, he then has to pierce at the end of the Dviparagdha or the lifespan of Brahma. The yogi then has to cross beyond the Brahmanda, beyond the material universe. It is explained later in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that Ashtabhir Bahiravritam, beyond this material universe, there are 8 different coverings of the 5 gross elements and the 3 subtle elements. So each of these covering or avarana of the universe is 10 times greater in magnitude than the previous one. In fact, the first covering avarana is 10 times the diameter of the entire universe. So all this wonderful information of the Vedic cosmology is also revealed here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So gradually, step by step, this takes a very, very long time, a very long period. It's a very gradual process. This elevation of the yogi from the material plane to Vaihayasa Loka, then to Vaishvanara Loka, then to Mahaloka, then to the various planetary systems, then to Brahma Loka, and then finally at the end of Dviparagdha, that is after billions of years after staying in Brahma Brahmaloka and being further and further purified of all material contamination, then at the end of the dissolution of this universe, one has to pierce through all the coverings of the universe and finally reach. So this is further explained that tato vishesham pradipadya nirbhayas tenatmanalo tenatmanapo nalamurtiratvaran jyotirvamayo vayumupetya kale vaivatmanakham brihadatmalingam. After crossing all these coverings of gross and material elements, one reaches the pure stage of Brahman or Brahma Jyoti, and then further advances to the stage of samsadhyagatya sahatena yati vijnana tattvam guna sannirodham tenatmanatmanamupeti shantam आनन्दमानन्दमयो वसाने एतां गतिं भागवतीं गतो यः स वै पुनर्नेह विसज्जतेंगा. This is a very, very important revelation about the ultimate achievement, the highest perfection for a Ashtanga yogi. Even for an Ashtanga yogi, he has to finally, after piercing through all the coverings of the universe, after reaching the stage of self-realization in Brahman, finally he has to attain Bhagavatim Gatim. He comes in contact, he comes directly in contact with the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world, in the eternal realm of Godhead, in the Vaikuntha Loka or Akuntha Loka. And that is the ultimate stage, the point of no return. Savai punar neha visajjatenga. One never returns to the material realm. As explained many times in the Bhagavad Gita, that there is the point of no return. Yad ghatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. That after attaining the supreme abode of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, that is the ultimate constitutional position of the spirit soul, reaching which one never returns to the material world. Whereas for a yogi who goes by this gradual process from one step after another to this ultimate stage, there is always the risk of fall down even from one step below the ultimate stage of reaching the spiritual world or Vaikuntha Loka. So therefore, now Shukadeva Goswami has very vividly explained the path of Ashtanga Yoga for a yogi with some material desires, which is to contemplate on the Virat Rupa or the Vishwarupa, the gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord, or for a person who is completely fixed in total renunciation to meditate on the Lord in the heart as Paramatma, and the destination or the gati of both of them is also explained. For one who is an advanced Ashtanga yogi or an advanced spiritualist, he directly reaches the Vaikuntha Loka, and whereas a neophyte devotee gradually elevates himself step after step and finally reaches the same destination of the spiritual world, the eternal kingdom of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Now the same destination, the same supreme abode of the Supreme Lord, having reached once, one never falls down to the material realm, is also attained by the Bhakti yogis, by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, and by the ultimate principle of Ante Narayana Smritihi, by the remembrance of the Supreme Lord at the time of death. So therefore, although Till now, theoretically, Shukadeva Goswami has explained the path of Ashtanga Yoga, both the basic and the advanced versions. Yet, this is not the exact recommendation, suggestion, or the prescription given by Srimad Bhagavatam or by Shukadeva Goswami. He remains fixed in his first instruction. So therefore it is stated here that ete sriti te nripaveda gite tvaya viprishte cha sanatane cha ye vai pura brahmana ahatushta aradhito bhagavan vasudevaha. That ultimately one has to engage in the pure devotional service of Bhagavan Vasudeva, and there is no other path, either material or spiritual. Even in the spiritual path, among all the various processes and paths of yoga, the supreme path, the unparalleled path is the path of Bhakti Yoga to Bhagavan Vasudeva, and this is mentioned again in 2.2.33 as Nahyatonya Shiva Pantha Vishatah Samskrita Viha Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yogo Yato Bhavet. That there is no other path as auspicious, as supreme, as effective, as best as Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yogo Yato Bhavet, the path of pure bhakti or devotional service to the Supreme Lord, to Bhagavan Vasudeva. So, one should become wise and come to this conclusion, which is also the ultimate conclusion arrived at by the first living entity of this universe, by Lord Brahma. So in 2.2.34 it is also mentioned that Bhagavan Brahma Kartsnena Trir Anvikshya Manishaya Tad adhyavasyat kutastho ratir atmanyato bhavet. That even Lord Brahma, he very deeply contemplated and with great attention and concentration studied the entirety of Vedic knowledge Trir Anvikshya 3 times, and finally came to the ultimate conclusion that the highest perfection for every living entity is to develop pure loving devotion and attraction for the Supreme Lord Vasudeva Krishna. So this is the ultimate path of yoga, the direct linking process of the Jivatma with Bhagavan by the process of Bhakti Yoga or pure devotional service. So one should simply follow the path of Lord Brahma, who has already done and completed all research on the material and spiritual processes and given the ultimate path and conclusion. So this is further explained that by Shukadeva Goswami also finally recommends that Tasmat. So this is a very significant instruction in Sanskrit. Tasmat is used in terms of giving the final conclusion. So that is expressed by Shukadeva Goswami in 2.2.36 as Tasmat sarvatmana rajan harihi sarvatra sarvada shrotavyaha kirtitavyascha smartavyo bhagavan rinam. Again, the same formula, the ultimate secret formula as revealed in 2.1.5 at the beginning of his answers to Parikshit Maharaj. The same is being repeated here again by Shukadeva Goswami, that Tasmat, therefore one should engage in the constant Shrotavyaha Kirtitavyaha Smartavyaha of Bhagavan Harihi. One should constantly engage in hearing, chanting and remembering the Supreme Lord Shri Hari, Lord In fact, in the final conclusive, the final shloka of this chapter in 2.2.37, just by practicing this method, Shukadeva Goswami gives complete and full assurance that pibanti ye bhagavata atmanasatam kathamritam shravanaputeshu samhritam punanti te vishaya vidushitashayam vrajanti tat charanasaroruhantikam. Those who receive the nectarian messages of Krishna Kathamritam through their ears, such great pure beloved devotees, they completely purify themselves of all material contamination, and vrajanti, they very without any obstacles, they directly go back home, back to Godhead, to the spiritual world, to the eternal kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Loka, or to Goloka Vrindavana. So in this way, in the second chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami gives a very nice summary and analysis of the path of Ashtanga Yoga, both for the basic and the advanced practitioner of Ashtanga Yoga, the method of meditation on the Paramatma, the Super Soul in one's heart, and the final destination or Gati attained by an advanced transcendentalist of transferring oneself to the spiritual world, to Vaikuntha Loka or Akuntha Loka, or for a neophyte practitioner who is still having some material desires, by a gradual step-by-step process to reach the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha Loka, or the final conclusion is given that the supreme path, the ultimate path, the direct path, it is just like if there is a huge, a very high 100-story building, then one can go from one floor to next floor to third floor to 50th floor to 90th floor to 99th floor and then reach the 100th floor. Or one can just take the elevator and press the 100 button and directly, without any stop at either 10 or 80 or 99, directly go to the 100th floor. So that is the comparative analysis between the Ashtanga Yoga or any other path of yoga with the direct elevating process of Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti Yogo, Bhagavati Vasudevi, to the Supreme Lord, to Bhagavan Vasudeva. Bhakti Yoga is the direct process. It is like taking the elevator directly to the spiritual world, to the ultimate spiritual destination of Vaikuntha Loka, the eternal kingdom of God. This supreme path of devotional service, the supremacy of devotional service is further delineated and explained in the third chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in the third chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, this fact is further firmly established that Bhakti Yoga or pure devotional service is the supreme path to reach the supreme destination of the soul. So, Shukadeva Goswami also explains. So, in this third chapter, initially, Shukadeva Goswami explains the process of Upasana Marga, or the worship of various personalities like the Devatas and also of the Supreme Lord. Again, just like in the previous two chapters, Shukadeva Goswami has explained the various parts of yoga just for a theoretical understanding, but always maintained the supremacy of the path of Bhakti Yoga. Likewise, for a proper understanding, for a theoretical understanding, Shukadeva Goswami also explains that because people in this material world have material desires, have selfish motivations, they are inclined to worship the various devatas for the fulfillment of their material desires. This principle is also explained in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in verse number 20 as Kamaistaistairhitagyana prapadyante anya devataha, that people whose intelligence, whose consciousness is polluted by material desires, kamaihi, they surrender to the various devatas and worship them. Whereas a person in complete knowledge after many lifetimes, bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate, he surrenders unto the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, knowing very well that Vasudevaha Sarvamiti, that Vasudeva Krishna is the Supreme Absolute Truth. So here again a comparative analysis is given first, especially from 2.3.2 till 9, the various methods of worship of the devatas for the fulfillment of material desires on the path of Upasana Marga have been explained. The Vedas and Upanishads primarily explain that the gradual process of elevation is Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda and Upasana Kanda. Karma Kanda has been completely rejected right at the beginning of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first chapter and as well as in the second chapter. The Jnana Marga has also been explained with the final conclusion coming to surrender to the Supreme Lord and reaching the spiritual world, the supreme abode of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Now, even in Upasana Marga at the various levels, how a living entity can progress has been explained here. So 2.3.2 to 9 in 8 verses is the very vivid description of Upasana Marga as Brahmavancha Sakamastu Yacheta Brahmana Patim Indramindriya Kamastu Prachakama Prajapatin Devi Mayam tu Shri Kamas Tejas Kamo Vibhavasum Vasukamo Vasun Rudran Virya Kamo Thaviryavan Annadya Kamastvaritim Sarga Kamo Dite Sutan Vishwan Devan Rajya Kamaha Sadhyan Samsadhako Visham Ayush Kamo Shvinau Devo Pushtikama Ilam Yachet Pratishtha Kamaha Purusho Rodasi Lokamataro Rupabhikamo Gandharvan Strikamo Psara Urvashim Adhipatya Kama Sarvesham Yacheta Parameshtinam Yajnam Yacheryashas Kamaha Koshakamaha Prachetasam Vidya Kamastu Girisham Dampatyartha Umam Satim Dharmartha Uttama Shlokam Tantu Tanvan Pitrin Yachet Raksha Kamaha Punya Janan Ojas Kamo Marudghanan Rajya Kamo Manun Devan Nirityam Tvabhicharan Yachet Kama Kamo Yachet Somam Akamaha Purusham Param. So it is explained that one who aspires to attain the Brahma Jyoti should worship the master of the Vedas, that is Lord Brahma. One who worships, one who wants to attain a lot of progeny, Prajakamaha, should worship Indra and the Prajapatis. One who desires good fortune should worship Durga Devi. One who wants to be very powerful should worship Agni or fire. One who wants a lot of money should worship the Vasus. One who aspires to be a great powerful hero should worship the Rudra incarnations of Lord Shiva. One who wants to be Annadya Kamaha, wants to have a lot of food grain, should worship Aditi. For the attainment of Swargaloka, one should worship the Adityas, the sons of Aditi. For to be very popular, for Pratishtha, one should worship the Sadhya Devatas. For a great empire and kingdom, one should worship the Vishwe Devas. For Ayushkamaha, for a long lifespan, one should worship the Ashwini Kumaras. For a very strong body, one should worship the Mahi or the earth. In this way, for a good wife, one should worship the Apsaras and especially Urvashi. For domination over others, one should worship Lord Brahma. For tangible fame, one should worship the Devatas, Varuna. And for a lot of wealth, also one should worship the Devata of Varuna. For great learning, Vidya Kamaha, one should worship Lord Shiva. And for good material bondage, for a good material relationship in Dampatya, in married life, one should worship Uma Devi, the wife of Lord Shiva. Likewise, for increase of one's dynasty, one should worship the Punyajana Devatas. For Rajya Kamaha, for a great empire, one should worship the Manu Devatas. For victory, for attaining victory. So for various things, it is explained that one should worship a specific Devata. But Akamaha Purusham Prabhum. If one is free from all kama, from all material desire, one should directly approach and surrender to the Supreme Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Now, after explaining the process of the worship of the Devatas in Upasana Marga, finally, in 2.3.10, this is to be noted with great attention that here Shukadeva Goswami finally does not recommend the Upasana, the worship of any of the Devatas. Finally, he again comes to the conclusion, to the conclusive point that Akamaha Sarvakamo va Mokshakama Udarathihi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Param. Either one be free from all material desires, Akamaha, or be Sarvakama, filled with all material desires, Moksha Kamaha, or one may aspire or desire liberation. Whatever one may be, either a materialist or a spiritualist or a whoever, whatever position one may be situated in, the best path for attaining the highest perfection is only one, which is Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. With intense Bhakti Yoga, one should worship the Supreme Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu. So this is the supreme path of Bhakti Yoga or pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, Lord Vishnu. Now, hearing these wonderful conversation between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, the sages of Naimisharanya were enthralled, were spiritually enlivened, and they again inquired from Suta Goswami as to what else did the great personalities Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami, what other transcendental spiritual topics were discussed between them. They glorified both Parikshit Maharaj and Vaiyasaki or Shukadeva Goswami, being of the top or most order of transcendentalists. They tell that Parikshit Maharaj, right from his childhood, even as a small child, Parikshit Maharaj was not attracted to frivolous play. Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharatha Bala Kridana Kai Kridam Krishna Kridam Ya Adare. Even in his play, he would always play with the central theme of Krishna Krida. Even his Krida was connected, his play in childhood was also completely Krishna conscious. And likewise, Vaiyasakishcha Bhagavan Vasudeva Parayanaha Urugaya Gunodara Satam Syurhi Samagame. Shukadeva Goswami is the topmost transcendentalist and spiritualist. So what other wonderful spiritual discussions took place between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. So this was very eagerly inquired by the sages of Naimisharanya. And here in 2.3.17 up to 25 is the very beautiful explanation, the very beautiful description of the supreme value and importance of devotional service or bhakti yoga explained by the sages of Naimisharanya. They say in 2.3.17, actually devotional service basically means the rendering of devotional service by the human being in with utilizing all one's senses. So the sages of Naimisharanya very beautifully explain that every organ and every sense that a human being possesses is of value only when it is utilized or dovetailed in the service of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, everything, the entire human life and existence becomes completely worthless and futile. Actually, the human form of life, the human body is many times described in the Srimad Bhagavatam to be the most suitable boat. And this material world is explained to be like a huge sagara or the samsara sagara. And to cross over this samsara sagara, the nrideha or the human body is explained to be the most suitable boat. And all the different senses, when they are connected with the Supreme Lord in devotional service, in bhakti yoga, one can very easily and very quickly cross this infinite ocean of material nescience and very easily reach the supreme abode of the Supreme Lord, Vaikuntha Loka, the spiritual world. So therefore, in the human form of life, if the human being does not utilize his time and senses and mind and all the human capabilities that one has in the linking process of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, then everything becomes worthless and futile. And how this is so is very beautifully explained by the sages of Naimisharanya with very, very suitable and appropriate examples. They first say that time is a very, very important, a most valuable asset or a liability. So how it can become the greatest asset or how it becomes a liability is explained in 2.3.17 as Ayur harati vai pumsam udyan astam chayannasau tasyagte yat kshano nita uttama shloka vartaya. Ayur harati vai pumsam udyan astam chayan asau. Every day with the rising and the setting of the sun, the sun is doing a very, very great activity. What is that? Ayur harati. The sun is snatching away our lifespan. So with every passing day, our lifespan is getting reduced. So, but not for a person. So the sun can take away the lifespan of all the living entities except for those who utilize their time in Uttama Shloka Vartaya, in discussing the transcendental divine pastimes of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. For such devotees, the sun or the time factor Kala cannot have a deteriorating effect, because with each moment spent in devotional service in Bhakti Yoga, they are advancing to the eternal supreme destination. So such is the wonderful quality investment of the highest asset of time, which can be done only by engagement of time in devotional service. Otherwise, time will be the greatest liability. So the loss of time is compared by Chanakya Pandita in Chanakya Niti that Ayushaha Kshana Ekopi Nalabhya Swarna Kotibhihi. One cannot purchase even a moment of one's lifespan with crores of gold coins. So tasyarthe yat kshanam nito. Therefore, one should not misutilize even a single moment of one's life. And what is the best utilization of time? It is to engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, by which one can be elevated, one can be freed from the influence and control of time factor itself, and go to the eternal supreme kingdom of the Supreme Lord Vaikuntha Loka. So further, the sages of Naimisharanya very beautifully explain that how all the various senses of the human body are have their best utility in devotional service, and without devotional service everything becomes completely worthless and futile. In 2.3.20, the sages say that Bilebatorokrama vikramanye na shrinvata karna putena rasya jihvasati dagdurikeva suta na chopagayatyurugaya gathaha. The karna, the ears, are best utilized in Shrinvataha Urukrama Vikraman. One should always engage the ears in hearing the transcendental glories and the divine pastimes and the holy name of the Supreme Lord Urukrama or Lord Krishna. And if one does not do so, then the ears of the human being are no better than a bila, a sarpa bila, the snake hole. So if one does not utilize the ears in hearing the divine pastimes of the Lord, one's ears are no better than the snake holes. Likewise, jihva sati dagdurikeva suta, we have the jihva or the tongue, which is utilized day in and day out, from morning till night. We utilize our tongue to continuously talk about so many things and so many subject matters, but all this talking is compared to the croaking of Dagdurika of a frog. A frog also keeps croaking throughout the day, but it is completely meaningless, and also an invitation to the snake to say that here I am. So likewise, all our talking with our tongue is completely meaningless and an invitation to the Kala Sarpa, except if we utilize our speech, our talking capacity in the glorification upagayati urugaya gathaha, in Krishna Katha, or in the glorification of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Likewise, it is further explained that Bharaparam patta kirita jushtam apyuttamangam nanamen mukundam shavau karauna kurute saparyam hare glasat kanchana kankanauva. That one may be decorated with a huge crown or a silk turban on his head, but one should actually utilize one's head in bowing down to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna in his deity form. And if one does not do so, then whatever crown or turban one may be wearing is simply a bharam or a big burden. Likewise, the hands, which may be even decorated with glittering gold bangles, are like those of a shava, or shava means a dead body, if they are not engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Barhaite te nayane naranam lingani vishnogna nirikshato ye padau nridam tau druma janma bhachau kshetrani nanuvrachato hareryau. The eyes should be utilized in seeing the divine forms of the deity of the Archa Vigraha of the Supreme Lord in his various temples. So otherwise, the eyes are no better than the barha, the plumes of the peacock, which also resemble the eye but are of no utility. Likewise, the sense of aroma should be utilized to smell the fragrance of the tulasi leaves offered at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, one is no better than a shava or a dead body. Padau nrinam tau druma janma bhachau. The legs should be utilized to visit the various holy places of pilgrimage where the Supreme Lord and his pure devotees have performed their various transcendental pastimes. Otherwise, our legs are no better than the druma lataha. They are no better than the trees, the tree trunks. Likewise, Jivan Shavo Bhagavatangrinum Najatu Martyo Bhilabheta Yastu Shri Vishnu Badya Manujastu Lasya Shvasanchavo Yastu Naveda Gandham. The person who has not at any time received the dust of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee is certainly again a shava or a dead body. So in this way, all the human faculties have their highest utility when they are connected in devotional service to the Supreme Lord. They can take us back. The human body is the boat, is the vehicle which can take us back to the Supreme Lord, to the Supreme Abode, the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka, the spiritual world. And if one does not utilize the human form of life for this eternal achievement, then it is the greatest loss, the greatest danger, the greatest misutilized opportunity. So therefore, one should become spiritually wise, just like there is the IQ or the EQ, the intelligence quotient or the emotional quotient, there is the most important SQ or the spiritual quotient, by which one understands the real value of the human form of life. Manava janma doddadu huchappagalira. Don't become insane and mad after material things. Understand the great value of the human form of life. Engage the human body and all the sense organs and all our limbs in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, and in this way one can undoubtedly attain the supreme perfection of the human form of life, to go back home, back to Godhead, the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka. Thank you very much. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please do press the like button, and please do join us for the continuation of the systematic study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.